And welcome back to the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. Okada is doing air guns at the camera, so if you're not on YouTube, I feel really bad for you. Also, Okada, put those in the holster, please.
Sorry.
We are back. It is Wednesday. We are halfway through the week. We've got another Dynasty-themed show for you all on tonight. We are discussing some Dynasty ADP. I think it's a super useful tool to kind of gauge players' values, kind of gauge trade targets, that kind of stuff. So that is the theme of tonight's show. Before we get into that, let's check in with my two co-hosts, Okada, John. What is going on, fellas? How's everybody doing?
Doing pretty good. It is midway into yet another week of May, yet another quarantine week. This thing is just keeps going. And I think that California says it's going to keep going for at least 3 more months. So yay for me.
Yeah. Kind of saw that.
Meanwhile, John State is out here just opening bars, opening barber shops. It's crazy out there.
Arizona might be getting sports, actually.
Yeah. Well, certainly they will allow for sports. I don't know if any of the sports leagues will let them play them. The Diamondbacks will just be 100-0 because they'll have won all their games against no one.
They'll just charge tickets for scrimmages, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, we are in the heart of Dynasty season, Betz. There are all kinds of startups going on. There's a certain startup that's going to be coming on soon. I don't know if we're ready to announce that, and we should keep it on the back burners.
We'll keep it on the back burner.
Yeah, listeners, be prepared for a crazy announcement in that regard. Devontae Adams jerseys are being given away on our social media, so you guys should check that out. But I will say, in fact, Betz mentioned, or we were talking before the show, and we plan our shows out, he mentioned a redraft idea, and then I shot it down by saying, Betz, ain't nobody that plays redraft and not Dynasty listening to our podcast right now. But if you're a redraft player and you're like, hey, can we get some non-Dynasty content, you maniacs? Hit us up and let us know, because then maybe we will. But in the meantime, it's another Dynasty pod.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about a lot of this stuff right now is even though we're talking specific with Dynasty ADP, it still tells listeners how we feel about a player, at least for this season. So that obviously translates to redraft. But yeah, man, it's crazy to say. It feels like there's 9 months between now and the season. It's almost June. Once June also hits, it is redraft season for sure. There's a couple of sickos out there named Matthew Betz and John Helmkamp who participated in a redraft. Real league, a real draft before the NFL draft. It was terrifying. It was
including
weird.
Rookies,
including rookies
without landing spots.
Yeah, John got CEH and Jonathan
and
Taylor
JT.
in that draft.
Let's go!
Wow.
So he lucked out.
Yeah,
I took DeAndre Swift. That is okay. It'll remain to be seen how it works out for redraft. But a bunch of industry people from NFL Network. We had Brad Evans in that league, a couple other people, just good people and fantasy football junkies because we can't get enough. And hopefully you're in the same mindset as us. Fantasy football 24/7, round the clock, all year. We don't stop, and neither does the NFL season, what it feels like. So, fellas, we're going to get into tonight's show. As Okada said, I just want to point out the specific reminder for the Devontae Adams signed jersey giveaway. It'll be going on for a few more weeks. We've had a ton of entries already, so if you want that jersey, get in there. We have tiered entries right now, so you can do things like retweet our tweet on Twitter. You can like the post on Instagram. You can subscribe on Patreon, all that stuff. The details are on the pinned tweet on our Twitter at RedShirtsFFPod. And another option there is leaving a review and a rating in your podcast app.
And that's a green and yellow jersey, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Not the white
jersey.
Sweet.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. Looks great. All right, boys, we're going to get into the Dynasty ADP for tonight's show. Before we do have a little bit of news to get to. Not too much, and then we'll get right into it.
I got great news, guys. Oh, hey, news. Yes. News.
All right, so I should preface this. It's May news, which means it's not news. There is a rumor that the Eagles are interested in signing Carlos Hyde, current free agent. That is per NFL insider Adam Kaplan. Now, fellas, today, we're recording this on Tuesday night. Today, fantasy Twitter lost its mind. Everyone was like, haha, all you people that were in on Miles Sanders, look at this. Like, how could you think he was going to get a full-time workload? And I say, this changes absolutely nothing. What are your thoughts on that for Miles Sanders' value? Because I think that's really where this conversation goes.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been talking about all along is a couple things. One, a true, 90% of the carries, bell cow back is a very rare thing in the NFL these days. Like Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. That's about it. You're going to split carries. And just on, I think it was our last podcast, wasn't it, that we were talking, we're thinking maybe 225 carries for Miles Sanders. Not that he's going to be a 300 carry guy. This is just bringing in someone that's going to tote the rock like 75 to 100 times, something along those lines over the course of the season. Miles Sanders is still going to get the workload that we think he's going to. And if it's a Carlos Hyde type, that's exactly what you want. Someone that's not going to threaten the passing down work for Miles Sanders, which is something that he's going to be used heavily because they have Jalen Reagor, and that's about it at wide receiver. So I want them to bring in a back that is going to not threaten passing down work and who's just going to kind of lighten the workload on the body a little bit for Miles Sanders and allow him to still do very, very well in PPR.
Yeah, this is like, I don't know if this is best case per se, but we knew they were going to sign somebody, and I like this more than if they had signed Devontae Freeman.
Yeah, I agree.
Who I think could have threatened a little bit more Miles Sanders type of workload and play ability and style. So, yeah, Carlos Hyde's going to be a 5 carry a game guy who gets 2 touchdowns, and overall is the impact on Sanders is going to be minimal.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, granted, you got to give it to Carlos Hyde, okay? He was like no one wanted him in the NFL. He had 4 teams by the time it was September 1st. Lands with the Texans and goes over 1,000 yards. So it's not like he's a terrible running back, but we have to remember who was giving him the football. Bill O'Brien giving it to him on 1st and 10, 2nd and 8, and then punting. So he just got a lot of volume in bad coaching, and the Eagles will not do that. They will give him some work, but if you were assuming Miles Sanders, like John said, was going to get 90% of the touches, you were fooling yourself. So I still think this is the exact same for Miles Sanders. No real change from me. If there's a dynasty owner in your league that sees this and they're like, oh man, Carlos Hyde, he was good last year. Buy Miles Sanders and you will be very happy.
I tried today to buy Miles Sanders. I sent a text. I sent a text and I was like, man, that sucks for Miles Sanders. And got shot down so fast. I got the response text. I was like, nah, we're good here. We're fine. Move along. But I tried. You got to test the waters. You got to see what the temperature is after news potentially changes things. But I don't think it's going to.
Yeah, and of course, we are operating as if this will probably happen. This is not official yet, but they're looking at Carlos Hyde as well as other veteran running backs. All right, boys, that is it for the news. We're going to get into our Dynasty ADP discussion, a little bit of an over-under segment. So I'll explain the rules, and then we'll kind of go from there. I looked up, 7 players that I felt like were kind of perplexing. Didn't really know how to value them in Dynasty. I feel like they've either been left for dead or they're rising like crazy and their ADP is kind of out of whack. So I want to get your guys' temperature on where that is. Talk about what their ADP is. If it's undervalued, properly valued. Okada is touching his nose for some reason. Maybe it's this idea stinks. I don't know.
No.
And then discuss if they would be a buy or a sell in Dynasty. I have 2 idiots for friends on this podcast.
So you're setting a number, and we're choosing if their ADP is currently over or under that number?
Yes, and we'll assume that under is under. If it's okay, let's say it's like the 110. You would say under would be 109 or less.
Yeah.
Over would be in the second
higher ranked player, but lower number. I would just like to state for the record before we start this that I go into this not at all expecting to win if it is a competition, because John has done at least 18,000 startups, and I can't compete with that. So.
I've done far too many, and there's probably still more. So I'm a degenerate, which is why I'm here.
Hey, here we are.
Yep.
It's so funny. Our group text between the 3 of us is literally one or two businessy things, and then like John will be like, all right, so I'm in this startup. I'm in the 4th round. And like 2 days will go by and he's like, all right, I'm in this startup. I'm in the 3rd round. I'm like, dude, did you just go backwards?
What do you mean?
Just
so
John
accurate.
doing startups all the time. So yes,
So accurate.
if this is a competition, John is going to crush you, Okada. All right, boys. We are starting with a running back. A guy who seems to be rising. People are in on this guy. They saw the second half of last year and they said, that dude is a top 12 running back. No doubt about it. This is Joe Mixon. Now, I'm going to set the over-under on his ADP. This is a single quarterback ADP, by the way.
Okay.
Courtesy of our friends at Sleeper. So single quarterback. The 2.04. Let's kick it over to John first. You going over or under the 2.04?
I'm going to say under. I think that in single quarterback, he is being valued as like ballpark RB 6 to 8 right now. People are so high on him and they're like, Joe Burrow's here and he's going to be the savior and the offense is going to be amazing. And their offensive line is better because they got a first rounder last year that was hurt on the O line and he's coming back and everyone's just gushing over Joe Mixon right now. Let alone we still haven't seen Burrow take a snap and he doesn't have any OTAs. So like probably pump the brakes on their offense, guys. Like they're not going to come out and be the Chiefs. But I'm going to go under. I'm going to say probably around like the 110 would probably be where I'd put it.
Ooh.
All right, Okada.
And I'm not. Yeah, and I don't want him there. But.
All right. I was gonna say I was gonna go like a hair over, like 205, 206. I feel like there's enough receivers that people really, really like that even with Mixon getting up to the RB 6 to 8 range, and I think it's probably in that range, 8, that the receivers will push him down far enough to get past 204. So I'm gonna go over it at 205.5.
We talked about John being a degenerate, knowing ADP like the back of his hand.
True.
And he got it right. Pretty much spot on. He is going at the 2.01, so not quite in the first round, but just on the cusp there. RB6, you guys both said RB 6 to 8, so he is right on that range. John, you touched on it. You said, I don't want him at that ADP, and you kind of voiced the concerns. I'll kick it back to Okada. Do you want Joe Mixon at that ADP?
Well, part of my initial reaction is that since I thought of him as a 205, that maybe I don't. But I will say that I do largely buy into a lot of what John was talking about the hype is based off of. Not necessarily immediately. Like, I do think it'll take a little while, to John's point, with no OTAs for Joe Burrow, rookie quarterback, offensive line. Yes, maybe improved pieces, but they still has to gel and cohese. Can cohese be... Is there a verb cohesion?
If there's a listener out there that knows the answer to this question, please add us on Twitter.
To gain cohesion. Let's go with that for now.
Wow.
We are idiots.
Yes. Then it will take a little bit of time. However, I don't think there's very much chance that it's a worse situation than it was last year or the last few years. Before last year, the coaching situation was awful. Last year, the offensive line was terrible. It was the one guy they got in the first round got hurt that they were trying to use to shore up that offensive line. Andy Dalton got hurt. It's just, it was a hot mess. AJ Green was hurt, which means there was less threat on the outside. Yeah, the Bengals were an awful team. Obviously, the most awful team in the NFL. I don't think that they can possibly be that bad again. So I think you are going to get a better Mixon even in the next year or two, years to come than we've seen, which has been very good. So I think he can. I would take him around that range. The 201 you said?
201, yep.
Yeah, I would take him around that range. I think he belongs around there.
See, for me, I don't want him at that ADP. And it's not necessarily that I don't think Joe Mixon is a good running back. I think he's great. Mm-hmm. But like John said, there's short-term concerns. And then we see it year after year after year. Now the Bengals are talking about that second contract. And I feel like at this point, you're just buying Joe Mixon to be at his ceiling. Like, I don't know that he can really go up in value from here. And there's very few players that I want to take at their ceiling. Joe Mixon right now, I feel like, is at his ceiling. So I'm out on that ADP. Personally, I would be selling. I don't have him ranked quite that high in my Dynasty ranks. So running back 6, yeah, I'm selling if I can get that type of value for Joe Mixon. By the way, before we move on, we do have an awesome article on the website specifically about Joe Mixon. So check that out at redshirtsfantasyfootball.com. That is from Kai, one of our writers, talking about if Joe Mixon can make the leap into RB1 territory this season in redraft. So check that out.
But let's just just to touch on. He's talking about him getting into the RB1 territory, and he's being drafted as the RB6. Like, we're trying to make an argument. One of our writers is trying to make an argument either for or against him being even an RB1, and he's going as the RB6 off the board in front of guys like sometimes Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, these guys are going after him, and I can't see that. I can't justify that value.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, fellas, we are on to our second player here, T.Y. Hilton.
Oof.
A former receiving yards leader in that statistical category a couple years ago. A guy that was locked in as like a back-end wide receiver one every year, and injuries, getting a little bit older. I don't really know how to value him, so hopefully you guys can tell me here. We're going to start with Okada on this one. I'm going to set the over-under at the 9.10.
Wow.
Single quarterback dynasty.
Oh, boy. In my mind, when you said his name, I was thinking 8th. That is pretty late. 9-10 is pretty late. I think that based off his name value and the fact that they actually signed at least name value also carrying quarterback after having Jacoby Brissett and Brian Hoyer for a couple games, I'm going to go ahead and say under. I think he's probably getting drafted a little bit ahead of that. I won't yet say how I feel about that, but I'm going to go under.
All right. John?
That line feels pretty close to me. I'm going to go over because I think there are a lot of people that have kind of written him off for dead because of injuries and age concerns, and people thinking that Phillip Rivers is coming in with a wet noodle of an arm, and that they're just going to go straight to their new bell cow running back with a majority of the work. I'm gonna say the over, which is kind of shocking for T.Y. Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ghost, a like 1,500-yard receiver a couple years ago.
Yeah.
That is pretty shocking. But yeah, I'm gonna guess it's over, but it feels pretty close to that.
All right, boys.
Oh god.
Kind of tied it up.
Oh.
And listen, this over-under line I picked based off the fact that I felt like in what I've seen in my Dynasty startups is more correct than what Sleeper's ADP shows. And I've gotten T.Y. Hilton in like the 10th round, the 11th round.
Seen it.
Like at that point, like, sure, I'll take a shot. But he's going in the 7th round, the 7.10, so 2 full rounds earlier than the over-under at the wide receiver 35.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I have pause with T.Y. Hilton, and it doesn't really have to do with this season. It's just injury is a concern. Lots of soft tissue injuries last year.
Hamstrings.
Hamstrings, calf.
Best be hating on them hamstrings.
I'm always hating on the hamstrings. The quad, the calf, like there's just recurring things that are more likely to happen than other injuries. Plus, you factor in the quarterback situation beyond this year is a complete question mark. He's getting a new quarterback this year alone. Like, I'm just out on T.Y. Hilton at his name value, like Okada was saying. So at the 9th, 10th, 11th, yeah, I'll take a shot. At the 7th round, I'm out. What do you guys think on T.Y. Hilton here? That is the wide receiver 35 value.
Yeah, so when I threw out my number, I said that the first thing that came to mind was 8th, and 7-10 is basically cracking into the 8th. And I said, I don't know if I said, but I would not want to take him there at all whatsoever. I'm saying it now.
I thought it.
I don't even know if I'd want to take him at 9-10, where he's actually good, or where you set the mark at. It's funny, John laid down some examples of what people are saying that are why he thought maybe people were over, and they were basically taking the words right out of my mouth. He's older. He's appeared washed. The injuries are a big concern. His quarterback does have a wet noodle of an arm.
Yeah,
we don't know exactly what to expect after Mr. Wet Noodle is gone. They drafted a good young wide receiver. I do not feel good about T.Y. Hilton at all. I think his best days are very much behind him. Yep. And we're looking at a guy who will flash wide receiver 2 weeks, but be more of a inconsistent wide receiver, 3 or 4 maybe for a couple years, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking him anywhere near the 7-10. No, thank you.
Yeah, I think that ADP off Sleeper shows that he's still getting some serious name value respect outside of who he is as a player. And most of the people that I've been drafting with are a lot of other fantasy football heads and people that are total degenerates on this stuff like I am. So I am seeing him go in like the 10th, 11th round for people that are just going, nope, I'm out. I'd rather take a young guy with upside than an aging wide receiver with soft tissue problems, a new old quarterback, and a lot of competition for touches and scheme and fit and all kinds of stuff that's going on there. So he's still definitely getting a bump for his name. I don't want him around there. What did you say? 7-10?
10, yep.
7-10, yep.
Boy, no thanks. I'm out there. Like Betz was saying, I might take a stab on him in the 10th or 11th round as my like wide receiver 5, maybe. But that's about it.
Yep, I definitely agree with everything you guys just said. I own T.Y. Hilton in one league, and it's because honestly, like I had a trade to go through. I forget who it was for. Oh, shocker! It was for Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel last year. Midway through the year, T.Y. had just come back. He had like 1 or 2 good games. I was like, all right, this is my chance. Like I got to get out. And the guy backed out like 2 hours before kickoff. He was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm scared. And now I'm just stuck with him. Like I don't even know what to try to offer someone to get rid of T.Y. Hilton. Like, do you sell him for, let's say your rookie draft hasn't happened yet, like a mid-second?
Oh,
I don't even. That. I would smash that if I got a mid-second for T.Y.
I think you're going to get an early third, maybe. Probably. Yeah. And I would probably take an early third if I could get it.
I think that I would too. I know how the mighty have fallen, but I think that I would. I mean, especially in a class like this, there are some very interesting third round prospects in this year's class. A lot of young guys, so many wide receivers in this draft class. Yeah, I'd probably throw a dart on a younger guy that can kind of develop on my bench as opposed to T.Y., who's just a decreasing asset at this point.
Yep, fair enough. Get out while you can. All right, fellas, next player here, we're going to kick it over to John first. This is a guy we were talking about in the Patreon Slack channel today with our patrons. Shout out to all you guys. Thank you so much for your support. And Okada said, I am rising on this guy. And I said, he's going in the show doc. N'Keal Harry.
Ooh.
2nd-year wide receiver for the New England Patriots. Came out last year, was some people's 1.01 in rookie drafts, did absolutely nothing last year. What are we doing with N'Keal Harry, guys? I'm going to set the over-under here at 6.09 in Dynasty startup drafts.
Wow.
John, what are you saying here?
6.09, single quarterback?
Single quarterback.
Boy, that feels rich.
Okada smiling like he knows he knows what the answer is.
He may have looked it up earlier.
I would never.
You would never. So he knows. I don't. I'm gonna say over on that 6th round. You're talking about wide receiver 3 territory. That feels awfully expensive for a wide receiver who, yes, was great in college, not an excellent separator, but fantastic ball skills, great in the air, really solid after the catch, good ability to great body control. His body control is incredible. And then he just had a bunch of injuries and did absolutely nothing in his rookie season. I don't even remember how many catches he had, like 6, like nothing. It was bad. So I don't know. That feels really expensive for a big question mark of a 2nd-year wide receiver that just lost Tom Brady and is going to Jared Stidham at quarterback. I'm gonna say over.
How dare you, John? He had 12 receptions last year. Excellent season.
Twice the number. Come on.
Twice as much.
Well, I did not peek at anything, but I was also gonna say the over. Just because of how you kind of introed it, Betz, in that he was as far as just rookie season goes, a massive bust for Dynasty fantasy players and for the Patriots. He did nothing. So I'm going to also say over, and I'll reserve my judgment on that until you tell us who's right. Well, I guess we'll both be right.
Yes, you guys are both too smart for this game. You both got it correct. He is going also at the 7-10, which is why I put him on this list. The exact same ADP as T.Y. Hilton.
That is interesting.
That is interesting.
So both wide receiver 35, 36 tied, however you want to look at that. But back-end wide receiver 3 value in Dynasty. Fellas, let's first talk. T.Y. Hilton or N'Keal Harry? Who would you rather have?
N'Keal Harry.
Okay, I'm in agreement on that as well. Now, would you take N'Keal Harry at the high five there was awesome. Yeah, if you're not watching on YouTube, you're doing it wrong, man. You got to come on YouTube.
You're missing out.
The value there, wide receiver 36, late 7th round. You guys in or out on that value, assuming that obviously better days are ahead for N'Keal Harry?
So I am in on that value because the one thing I did look at earlier today was my ranking on N'Keal Harry, and that is exactly where I have him. But as I said in the Patreon chat, I felt like I am rising mentally from where he is for me now, and I think that number is going to change in the coming days or weeks. Maybe if I do a big rankings readjustment this week, which is possible. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, people bring up the fact that he doesn't separate, which is true. Probably the most consistent, young, productive fantasy wide receiver 1 over the past 5 years is named Mike Evans. He does not separate.
No.
N'Keal Harry is the same thing as Mike Evans. He has that same exact kind of upside. I think he can be the same type of player. I think he can be a double-digit touchdown guy, and I think he can have 15 yards per reception with 14.9 of them being
air yards
before the catch. Yes, air yards. But more importantly, like Betz mentioned, this is a guy who was a 101 last year. I don't know if he was the consensus 101, but he was certainly it was a pretty tough year to call, but he was a common 101, I would say.
Yeah, it was either him or Josh Jacobs. That was kind of the consensus.
And he was my 101. And
shocking.
Yes. To say that after 1 year where he didn't do anything, but not because he was on the field and they tried to target him and he played poorly, but simply because he could not learn the playbook and therefore could not get on the field. Like, he did not get snaps of any sort of meaningful value until very late in the season. And to his credit, with the very few targets that we did see him get the ball, he actually looked decent.
Yeah, he had some nice plays.
Yeah, he made some great plays, including a touchdown that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen.
Yeah, that dive
against the Chiefs. They got, oh my gosh, unbelievable. So I think he is a great buy right now. In fact, I kind of wish I had named him on the buy low episode last week, because I think you're getting a guy who is a 101 and has wide receiver 1 upside if he can get his ish together with learning the playbook, which I think he can. For what did you call it? 7-10?
7-10, yep.
That's incredible value. So yes, it's risky, but I'm in on it. And one of the reasons I'm rising is that I think we're hearing good things about Jared Stidham. I'm feeling a little bit better about that situation. So that helps a lot too.
Yeah. Exactly what we were just talking about with T.Y. Hilton, with where he's going. I'd rather take a young guy with upside. That's exactly, if I'm facing those two options, I would take N'Keal Harry over T.Y. Hilton, which honestly hurts my heart because I had him in so many redraft leagues like 5 years ago. And it's just, it's hard to watch them phase out. You know what I mean? It's always really challenging. Yeah. The T.Y., man, that was it. And he just, nicknamed the Ghost because he would just blow past secondaries. He never scored a touchdown inside the red zone. It was always a 40-yard bomb, like every single time. So it's kind of nostalgic, and it's a little bit of a changing of the guard there, and that's hard. But I'd rather take someone that had great draft capital, very good ball skills, and has future growth opportunity, like Okada was talking about, instead of someone who we've seen the best of T.Y. Hilton, and he's just a decreasing value, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, those are all great points on N'Keal Harry. And the thing that's encouraging about N'Keal Harry is the depth chart in New England.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They didn't go out and really address it at all. I mean, you've got Julian Edelman, and who knows what's going to happen with him at age 34 with Jarrett Stidham. Like, there's a realistic scenario that N'Keal Harry leads this team in targets this year. I mean, I just actually ran through the projections for the Patriots yesterday. I didn't project that to happen, but they're pretty close. He and Edelman. I have his stat line coming out to be 52 receptions, 624 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So from a year 1 to year 2 leap, I'll take that. And then I think that tells you there's at least optimism among us for N'Keal Harry, like we said, the former 1.01. Real quick before we move on, how would you guys gauge N'Keal Harry in this year's rookie class? Like, give me a name that you think he's similarly valued to.
This was actually how he came up in the Patreon chat today, which, by the way, in case we didn't mention it, to anyone who's not in our Patreon, you should get all up in there because it is great. There was a whole bunch of discussion today. I had a big debate over my lunch break about A.J. Brown. It was very fun. But the question was where he kind of falls in relation to some of the rookies, and I said that he was after Pittman and before Higgins.
That is exactly where I was going to put him.
Which is somewhere in the early second, early to mid-second, probably early second. And, you know, top 6 receivers-ish. Top 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's...
Also, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, that's exactly what popped into my mind was Michael Pittman Jr. Was the name that popped up when you were asking that question. Early to mid-second value, right around there. 2.04 probably.
Which, by the way, is interesting because, and I feel like that's his on-the-market value. I don't think you can get him for a late second like you can with T.Y. Hilton, despite them being the same startup value, which is really interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, I wonder what it would take to. I might have to have some. I might for science purposes only. I swear. I think I'm going to have to go put out some feelers on some N'Keal Harry in some of my leagues and see where the value comes back at.
Yeah, I offered the 208 like 2 months ago for N'Keal Harry in the league that you and I play in together, Okada, the Pros and Joes league. It got shot down, which I was sad about. So there's people that I think are savvy. They're on to N'Keal Harry. For sure, and this ADP shows it. All right, boys, before we move on to the next one here, quick pause. Thank you to today's sponsor, TinyWhiteboardWorkouts.com. Guys, it's May. It's almost June. John's in freaking Arizona. Like, it's already 100 degrees. It's beach season. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's a COVID-19 thing. Maybe not, but it's still summer. You still got to get that body in check, and you got to go to TinyWhiteboardWorkouts.com. Okada's been running, trying to be all fit and stuff. But man, TinyWhiteboardWorkouts.com is such a good value. My friend John is a personal trainer and performance coach.
Not me.
The dude knows what he's doing. No, not John Helmkamp.
No.
John knows what he's doing, man. He's going to help you out at Tiny Whiteboard Workouts. This is essentially the theory behind the name. He writes up the workout of the day on his Instagram page, which is the same handle, Tiny Whiteboard Workouts, and he writes it on a little tiny whiteboard. That's the name. And it's free. But in order to really get the benefits of the training, you kind of have to work with him. He'll help you out with your nutrition, coach you up on movement quality and safety and that kind of stuff. The dude is smart. He knows exactly what he's doing. I trust him for sure. So check out TinyWhiteboardWorkouts.com. And when you go sign up with John, let him know that the Red Shirts sent you his way. All right, fellas. Next player here on the list is a guy that I have zero clue how to value in Dynasty because Tyler Higbee came in and stole the show last year, and that is Gerald Everett.
Oh, jeez.
Tight end for the LA Rams, who, by the way, was the tight end 14 before he went down with injury in week 12. Guys, I'm going to set the over-under at 14.11.
14-11.
Who goes first this time? I forget.
I think it's me.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna go ahead and answer quickly, mostly because I have little to no clue, so I may as well just take a 50-50 guess. I'm gonna go over here. I think that Higbee is the new hotness. He's what's on everybody's mind, and Everett is kind of the immediate sort of follow-up on that concept is you can't have two good young tight ends on the same team. There's no way.
Right.
So I think there's little chance that Everett makes it onto anybody's radar as a starting option, even a decent backup option. I think he's probably in the tight end 15 plus range for a lot of people, and that feels like an after that 14th round pick. So I'm going to go with over.
Oy vey. Where'd you say it? 14.9? Is that where you put it?
14.11.
14. Oh, geez. Borderline 15.
Those two picks could make all the difference, John.
So much. Boy, that is really challenging because he was looking really good early in the season, like you were saying. Super athletic tight end. Just because I don't feel like agreeing with Okada, I'm going to say under, and I'm going to make up a reason why. People really, really like young, explosive, athletic tight ends that had really good measurables. And that is what Gerald Everett is. I think a lot of people enjoy those super explosive young tight ends that they can stash on their bench and hope for a breakout. And I think that we saw some very good things early in the season last year. I also, as we've commented in previous shows, down the stretch last year, they went pretty heavily to a 12 personnel. If that's the offense that they're going to be rolling, you might see both of these tight ends with decent roles in the offense. It's not just going to be feast or famine. So I think that there is a chance that he is going under that, especially because people get really hyper on tight ends and you'll see like a tight end run because everyone panics. I'm going to go under. I'm going to say under. I talked myself into it.
John, I love the confidence. However, you are very incorrect.
Okay.
Okada hit that one out of the park. 16.07 is his value right now. That is tight end 28.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Are you serious?
We're not talking Dynasty bias tonight, but go buy Gerald Everett.
Yeah.
Listen, guys.
No kidding.
A couple of years ago, these two tight ends came out in the exact same draft class. Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett. Who did Sean McVay talk about it as his Jordan Reed? It was not Tyler Higbee. So it was Gerald Everett. And listen, man, there are quotes from just a month ago talking about Gerald Everett. Sean McVay coming out saying he's really excited about seeing what he can do. He's a guy that's got a better job of utilizing his skill set because he's a difference maker. That's a direct quote from Sean McVay. So this Tyler Higbee buzz is real, and I'm not buying into it. I'm going to fade Higbee, especially in redraft leagues. And in Dynasty, I'm going to target Gerald Everett. If you're telling me one of these guys emerges as like the every down, like pass catching tight end, I'm going to take Gerald Everett. I don't know that it'll happen early in the season, but I think it might happen as the year goes on. I'm buying at tight end 28 value. Yes, please.
So this is a really tough one because I just went ahead and checked in real quick on Tyler Higbee's game logs, and I forgot. Maybe no one else has forgotten, but I feel like everyone has forgotten. He more than bald. Whatever bald is a severe understatement for what Tyler Higbee did at the end of last season. Are you kidding me? These are his last 5 games.
I lost to him in a playoff. I lost to Tyler Higbee in a playoff game.
Just Tyler Higbee.
7 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. 7 for 116, 12 for 111, 9 for 104, 8 for 84 and a touchdown. Those are his last 5 games. Those are Julio Jones numbers.
Yeah.
What the heck are you talking about?
Unreal.
Yeah, it was nuts.
But what that does for me is it puts me in this really difficult conundrum of, A, did Sean McVay decide all of a sudden that he really likes throwing to a tight end? Mm-hmm. And so with Gerald Everett back, he's going to run a lot of 12 personnel and use both of them because he realized this works really well. Yeah. Or B, did he realize that Tyler Higbee is clearly the better option because it just so happened that when Gerald Everett got hurt, Tyler Higbee started getting all this production. And I feel like I lean a little bit more to the latter because both of them were there early in the season, and it seems random that just all of a sudden when it's Tyler Higbee and whoever was then playing second fiddle at tight end when Everett was out, that he decided to suddenly target the number 1 tight end way more often. Like, yes, Gerald Everett was leading early on, but he wasn't getting this kind of work at all. And then all of a sudden Everett is out, Higbee is forced forward, And somehow, all of a sudden, McVay sees Higbee in a different light. He gets to see him running with, the ones more often, or he gets to see Jared Goff targeting more often, and he sees it start to work. And Higbee becomes the number one receiver on the team at any position. So I think I lean a little bit more towards Higbee, which means lean a little bit away from Everett. Having said that, I still think he's a value at tight end 28 and in the 16-plus round range. It's a lot of words. Mostly about Tyler Higbee.
All the words. Yes. I am looking up Gerald Everett game logs here for comparison's sake.
Not good. He had a couple of big games.
Yeah, he had a couple massive games, and then most of the rest were very subpar. Actually, he only had one. Yeah, and it was at Seattle. I had it in my mind. I was like, didn't Gerald Everett destroy us in a game last year? He did. 7 for 136. And that's it. Other than that, 3 for 21, 2 for 15, 2 for 9. 4 for 50, 2 for 15. Okay, yeah, I'm going Tyler Higbee is the tight end 1 on the Rams. He did look great. He got more separation. He did a great job of being a security blanket for Jared Goff. Goff started the year last year really shaky, and I think that he started to get a little bit more confidence down the stretch. I think that it's possible that Tyler Higbee is one of the big reasons why they went to a 12 personnel, give him a big friendly target. That target did a really good job with his opportunity. I think that he's going to be the one going forward, but still at the ADP in the 16th round, didn't you say? Yeah, the 16th round. I'll take a shot on an athletic tight end there. I'll do that. I think that's absolutely possible. Players get traded all the time. You never know if he ends up somewhere else and gets a really good opportunity. That could happen. I'll buy the athleticism and the youth of a tight end as tight end 26 to stash on my roster all day long.
Yeah,
28.
Yeah. He's to John's point, one of those perfect guys that I love to collect on the back end of my roster. A tight end that people have largely discarded, that no one is going to be starting or even thinking about putting in their lineup, but he's still young enough and has shown the talent that I think in 2 more years, and if he goes to another situation especially, he could be all of a sudden a starting tight end for my team. So that's a great call.
Yeah, I love it. Good talk there on Gerald Everett. Certainly good value in Dynasty startups, no doubt about that. All right, guys, we are talking about a former first-round running back next here on this Dynasty ADP game, Mr. Sony Michel.
Oh man, it's all the Patriots' first round picks on this show.
Just sounds gross to even say.
Wow.
I don't even know how to value Sony at all. Like a guy that I was super hyped about the landing spot, thought they could give him the ball in the passing game. They just didn't do it. Like pedestrian on the ground, couple injuries here and there. But like we said with N'Keal Harry, the depth chart there as far as playmakers go is not great. Sony Michel could have some value this year. So with that being said, let's set the over-under at the 10.02, and we are starting with John on this one.
Wow.
I'm going
John
over.
Gets so stressed every time I say it.
Over. Wow.
I'm going over. Sony Michel is dead to me. He's dead to me. I have absolutely no desire to own any shares of Sony Michel. He had opportunity. He did nothing with it. He falls on contact every single time. He trips himself and tackles himself for a loss. I have no desire to own Sony Michel in an offense that is going through a major transition. Belichick doesn't care who's at running back as long as they're getting yards. They don't care about your draft capital. They don't care about anything like that. If Rex Burkhead is churning out 3.5 yards a carry and Sony Michel is churning out 1.9, Rex Burkhead is going to get the ball. James White is still there. And can you speak a little bit, Betz, to his injury concerns? Like, it looks like he's lost a lot of confidence in his plant based off of past injuries.
Yeah, he's had a couple of injuries on the same knee. He's had 2 meniscus injuries and the previous ACL tear from several years ago. So, yeah, it is definitely a concern for me as far as the longevity of that knee. And he's been a guy that came in the draft and people were like, this is the bone on bone situation that people always bring up when they do the medical checks at the combine. And it never really, that doesn't really translate to like short-term outlook, but it does for long-term. So Sony Michel's days as an NFL asset, I think, are winding down. I don't know that he's necessarily going to last for another 3 years in the league, to be honest with you. So, yeah, for Sony Michel, that definitely is a pretty big concern.
Yeah, and it looked like you could watch him last year, and he just doesn't cut like he used to.
He looks slow.
He looks slow. He doesn't have lateral burst. I mean, I don't know. It's entirely possible. I don't know what his contract situation is off the top of my head. But if you told me this was his last year in New England, it wouldn't surprise me. If it's going to be a limited hit to cut him after this season, I could absolutely see that happening if he doesn't put up a good season. So, yeah, I have no interest in Sony Michel. I'm going over. I think that everyone is fading him hard. At least that's my impression. And if you're not, then let's have a conversation. But I don't want anything to do with Sony, so I'm going over. Yeah,
real quick, Okada, before you jump in. He is under contract through 2021.
Okay.
All right, Okada, what do you think?
I'm going to take the under. I'm not necessarily saying that I want to yet for myself, but I'm going to say that the ADP is at the under because I don't think it's far enough into his career for the world to have given up on him quite to the degree that John has. And so I think that there's still a good chance, considering his draft capital, considering his college production and tape, that he's still holding a decent value slightly above that. Under that, depending on how you look at it.
Yes, I see what you're saying. The under hits again. The 9.03 is his actual ADP on Sleeper. That is running back 31. Guys, I don't know that my Dynasty ranks reflect this, so I need to go back and check, but I just put Sony Michel down arrow on my notepad here. I mean, John hit it. Like, he is the poorest version of Derrick Henry that exists. He doesn't catch the football. He's a between the tackles guy. But the thing is, Derrick Henry is a monster and the best in the game at doing it. And Sony Michel is moving at a snail's pace and on an offense that, no offense, Okada, was terrible last year. We don't know what we're going to get with Jarrett Stidham. I'm out on Sony. I'm with John on that one. Even at running back 31 in the 9th round, I'm passing on Sony. What do you guys think?
I would not be surprised at all if his ADP is 3 rounds lower by August. Like,
could be.
Yeah,
would not surprise me. I will say I have him. I just checked my rank. I have him at 32, so I'm just a hair behind ADP. Listen, this is a really tough one, especially as a Patriots fan, for me to decide on. But I will say this: I believe this guy was very, very talented. I think that injury may have slowed him. We'll see. But the other thing that I think, and I think it's something I mentioned with N'Keal Harry, and I think it's something that we have to consider with the Patriots in general, is new young players do not adapt well to Bill Belichick's schemes and systems because they're very hard to learn. And especially when you have a running back like James White, who you know is going to pass protect for Tom Brady like an absolute monstrosity, and you do not need to worry. I know. And you are worried, and you're worried about... No, I'm going to get to that in a second. And you're worried about putting Sony Michel in front of him instead of James White on passing downs. I can see why Sony Michel might not earn the work in that offense that he should have based off his draft capital and his college work. Tom Brady is now gone, as was just wisely pointed out by John Helmkamp. And Jarrett Stidham is not nearly the asset that Tom Brady was. Sorry, Jarrett. And I hope that you do well, but... The concept of we must protect this man at all costs doesn't maybe exist quite as highly. And Michel has now been in the system for another year. I think that if there's a year for Sony Michel, this could be it. This is it. Well, for sure it is it. But yeah. I mean, this could be the year that I actually expect the breakout. And listen, their quarterback is gone. They're going to be working with a sophomore who's gotten 2 snaps, and one of them was an interception. At quarterback, they
it sounds a lot like Nathan Peterman.
They still have an elite defense, and I expect them to come out and try to play Titans football this year, or Ravens football minus the mobile quarterback, or Seahawks of old football, which is to play good defense, run the ball, and have a game manager at QB and extend their drives and keep the ball out of their opponent's hands, especially when they have to play, the Chiefs and teams like that, which they have a tough schedule offensively. And I think that means Sony Michel could get forced into a decent workload. I could see him getting 250 carries this year. And if he gets 250 carries this year, he'd have to be pretty bad to not be viable in fantasy.
He's really
to be fair, if he plays badly, he'll probably not even get the 250 carries.
Right.
Well, before we move on from that point, do you think he played well or not last year? Just like to gauge a point of like how you're feeling about him as far as what he's done so far.
Overall, I would say subpar.
Yep.
I wouldn't say horrible, but I would not say good. And I wouldn't even quite say average. I think for the most part, he looks subpar. But I think he also did show some flashes. And I think it doesn't help to his credit when he gets mixed in all the time with these other guys, when Rex Burkhead is flying around and you don't even know where you are in the system. And I think part of that is him not knowing very well because it takes these guys a while to learn. So this is a make or break year for sure. If he gets 4 weeks in and is not getting 15 carries a game and playing at RB2 levels, I'm probably already going to give up. I'm not going to have a long leash with him, to John's point, but I'm going to have to give him a little bit of a leash. So I'll draft him around there because that's where I have him ranked, but it's a short leash.
Well, before we move on from that, and I'll let John go in a sec, you mentioned the 250 carry mark is like, if he can get that, like that's intriguing. He got 247 last year. And
was not very good.
3.7.
How many touchdowns did he score? I feel like he scored no touchdowns.
He scored 7 touchdowns.
Oh, that's not even that bad.
900 yards and 7
bad
touchdowns.
Yards per carry, though.
But man, looking at his targets, 20 last year, 11 the year before.
So that's why I brought up the pass protection. I think that there's a chance that because he might take a step forward in the pass protection, that he takes a step forward in the passing game, but it's a big risk.
You have James White. Why are
we're not going to have James White for forever.
No, but you're going to have him for this year.
Yes, but Sony's got to learn. They spent the first round pick on him.
This is going to be the nail in the coffin he's not going to get a chance to.
I think they're going to give him the chance because it's no longer Tom Brady that they're protecting. I think that it was not worth the risk.
Yeah, it's fine. Jared, just going to get
it's just Jared. He can take a hit. He's 20 years younger. He'll be fine.
He'll bounce back. He won't bruise up as easily. Man, yeah, I don't like it. And the offense as a whole, I think, just takes a step back. I think his opportunities goes down. Like Tom Brady still managed to keep that offense moving and put up decent numbers with nobody. They still have nobody other than N'Keal Harry, and Julian Edelman now has to get on the page. He and Tom Brady read each other's minds for years. And now you've got a kid back there that Edelman's going to be like, I'm over here. Why is the ball over here? I don't understand. They're not going to be on the same page. The offense is not going to move like they did last year. It's a miracle that offense did what they did with the talent that was there. So the offense as a whole is going to take a step back.
It's almost as if they have a magician, a head coach who can work miracles.
It's almost like they had a quarterback who knows how to manipulate and read a defense better than anybody in the history of the game who's not there.
The continued debate of Brady versus Belichick, who is more responsible.
I love it.
Exactly. But they were the perfect complement to each other. It was both. It's both. It's not just one or the other. I don't think that offense puts up 70% of their stats that they did last year. And I don't think that Sony, it's going to be so bad. And I don't think that Sony Michel gets the opportunities that he did from one, the eye test, and two, the offense as a whole lacking the ability to move the ball.
All right, boys. That is a lot of talk there on Sony. John and I are out.
It's a lot of energy spent on Sony Michel. Sorry.
Yes. So we'll try to be a little bit quicker here with these last two. We're running a little bit low on time, as per usual, here on the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. Guys, we got to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. Arguably the most talented, maybe, receiver in the game, you could say. Top 3. But man,
I'd argue top 3.
He was the 1.01 in Dynasty startups just 2 or 3 years ago. And now he is not valued even close to that. I'm going to set the over-under, fellas, at the 2.10.
In single quarterback?
Single quarterback.
Can I go for it? It's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Under. In single quarterback, under.
Yeah.
And it's close. I mean, there are a lot of very talented players in that second round range, but I am buying the bounce back for the Browns offense as a whole, a step forward for Baker, a second year connection between Baker and OBJ, play action passing, like we've talked on several times in this podcast, and how Stefanski, the new head coach, likes to bring in that play action pass and how good Baker is at that. I think that Odell Beckham Jr. has a massive opportunity for a bounce back campaign to be a solid wide receiver one option, like potentially a top 6 to 8 guy. And I think that he is in single quarterback where no quarterbacks are going yet in the draft, unless someone's getting crazy hyper on Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. It might happen. But I mean, to me, he's no later than a mid-second. Like, he's 2.04 in single quarterback is probably where I'd put him.
So I initially was agreeing with John in my mind, but after hearing him talk, which is funny because he just said good things about Odell, I'm actually going to go with the over, and it's for 2 reasons. One, because I feel like I'm letting in my mind my own views on Odell influencing me to go earlier in the draft. It's hard to use these adjectives.
No, I get it. You're using like your own thought process against consensus.
Yes,
is what you're having a hard time differentiating, and I'm struggling with that too. Yeah.
We talked in this big conversation in Patreon today. It was a lot about wide receivers in general. Someone got Odell in the 5th round in a Dynasty startup, which is insane, but I think is telling of maybe where people are going. So listen, you're not going to get him in the 5th round in almost any league, but I think you might get him easily in the 3rd round in a lot of leagues. So I'm going to take the over.
Wow. The 5th round. Well, I'll tell you what, his ADP is not the 5th round.
Okay.
It is the 2.09. Just one spot under what I said. So right. John gets it on that one. Wide receiver 10 value.
Yeah, I like it.
I got to pull up my ranks, but I'm in on the OBJ revenge tour this year. I'll just put myself out there and say that. Like,
scorched
the talent, the opportunity. Yeah, he just actually posted on his YouTube channel. I was watching the other day. He was posting some of his workouts and like talking about how he felt last year. And he said, I literally was in pain every single day from August until December. Like, not himself, couldn't open up his stride, dealing with that sports hernia surgery. And I'll just say from experience, that is one of the most painful things to deal with. I mean, anytime you cough, you sneeze, you twist, you run, you jump, like every single thing you do in day-to-day life, everything you do in sports causes pain. So it's a surgery that heals reliably. It's a surgery that I never really tell people to stay away from that player for. So I'm in on Odell from a health perspective. And we've talked about Baker in the play action passing. I'm in, man. I think Baker and OBJ are going to have a fantastic season this year. What are your guys' thoughts? You buying or selling at wide receiver 10?
Okay, I was just going to ask what number wide receiver he was. 10. So I can answer this very easily because he's my wide receiver 6, which is a smaller number than 10. Ergo, I will buy him at wide receiver 10. Listen.
One less digit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
There's a lot of similarity weapon-wise to a degree between the Browns and the Vikings of the last couple of years. Except that Odell Beckham Jr. is a better wide receiver than Adam Thielen.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs is a better wide receiver than Jarvis Landry is at this point, in my opinion. Stephon Diggs is a nastier version of Jarvis Landry.
I don't know.
He's dirty.
Okay, that's a different conversation.
We'll talk about that at another point.
I love me some Jarvis Landry.
We'll talk about it in the Patreon chat. So listeners, hop in there. We'll chat.
And Baker Mayfield certainly can be as good or better a quarterback than Kirk Cousins. And I think there's a very good chance he is. So all things considered, I feel like Odell is a better Adam Thielen from what we've seen the last couple of years, which has been in this range for sure already. And I think Odell is going to be better. So if he can stay healthy, which has been a fat question mark over the past couple of years, good gracious, Odell, play 16 games, please. And this offense does actually take the step forward that we wanted it to do last year, which I am more confident about it doing this year, then I'm in. Yes, please.
Alrighty. Last player here, fellas, and John, we gotta get a win for you here. The score currently, Okada has 3, you have 2, and you both tied on 1 with Miguel Harry. So, John, you got to get this here to
moment of truth.
Save yourself here. All right, guys, we're talking David Montgomery.
Oh, D-Mont.
The guy in the class last year. Everyone said this guy breaks tackles. He's going to get a huge workload in Chicago. That offense fell apart. They did not know how to use him. They did not know what to do. I'm going to set the over-under here at the 6.01. David Montgomery, what do you think? And we're with Okada on this one.
Ooh, boy. John, you spoke out. Do you just want to go?
Sure.
Gentlemen.
I will gladly fall on my sword first so that you can have some time to think. I'm going to go under the 6.01. I think that he is being viewed as a running back 2, maybe fringe running back 3. I think that he is being viewed as a guy that a lot of people think that they can target as being their second running back if they tend to go wide receiver heavy in the first couple rounds. So I think that he finds himself in a good situation. Matt Nagy, dude, just give the guy the ball. Like, give him the ball. The lack of carries at points last year when your quarterback was Mitch Trubisky was baffling. Why are we trusting Trubisky's arm instead of a rookie running back that was like on fire? Like, he was the talk of the town. Everybody loved him. Everyone was excited about him. He was there. He looked great in training camp. He looked great in the preseason. He was ready to roll. And then he had games where he had like 6 carries. It's like, what are you doing trusting Miss Trubisky that much? There were also games where he was like, you know what? It was my mistake. I didn't get him enough carries. So I got him 26 against Denver or whatever the number was.
Yeah, the overcorrection.
The overcorrection. So I think that he knows that they need to use the running game. I think that they know that they can't really trust Mitch Trubisky, which is why they brought in Nick Foles. So I think that Montgomery should be valued as a running back 2, low end, like not like running back 16, like running back 20 ballpark, maybe a little bit after that in my mind. I need to do my rankings and figure out exactly where I'd like to put him there. But I think that in single quarterback going in the late 5th to early 6th, I think that sounds right. At least that sounds like right for me. I don't know what the consensus is thinking, but I think that that's where I'm going to put it. I'm going the under.
You went under?
Yes, sir.
Or you went... Okay. Then I'm going to take the over just to give him the chance to tie it up.
Oh, what a scholar.
Because I'm nice. And you went first, which was kind of you. So, it's a trade back. However... Before I do that, I would just like to read 3 stat lines for you guys. All right. Running back A, 209 carries for 931 yards and 6 touchdowns. Running back B, 247 carries for 912 yards and 7 touchdowns. Running back C,
I know who that is.
242 carries for 889 yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, I may be tripping, but I feel like running back A and B had better numbers than running back C. Running back C is David Montgomery. Running back A and B are Sony Michel as a rookie and Sony Michel last year.
Yep. Yeah. I just looked that up while we were talking about
it. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay.
Like I said, there was also some piss poor game management where they gave him like 6 carries, 8 carries, something atrocious and dumb like that.
But he ended up with 242.
I don't care about
5 less than Sony Michel.
And Michel, is that how we're doing our rankings? Is that how we're doing our rankings?
I'm just saying.
We're just going to do our rankings based on total stats?
Listen, you said that
is
Sony
this your
Michel
first year in fantasy football?
Utter doo-doo last year, and he was better than David Montgomery on the same number of carries.
No.
Now, granted, David Montgomery can get better. It was his rookie year, although Sony Michel's rookie year was better and more efficient.
Stop.
And to be fair, David Montgomery was more involved in the passing game. He had 25 catches instead of 12. Not that many more yards. He wasn't that productive overall, but he did get more targets and catches. So that helps. I'm just pointing out that I think there's a little bit of bias towards David Montgomery having just seen him in his rookie season. And so we feel like we still have a little bit of that rookie glow, and Sony Michel's rookie glow has worn off. And so we're already ready to give up on him. And that feels a little iffy. Like, it would not at all surprise me if David Montgomery does the same thing in year 2 that Sony Michel did in year 2, which is 247 and 9, 12, and 7. Having said all that,
John is beside himself right now.
I like David Montgomery more than Sony Michel. So let me just be clear about that.
Thank you.
Having said that, I do not like David Montgomery as much as the consensus does. I am not feeling great about taking him late 5th, early 6th. And I don't see him becoming an RB1. I see him being a 1,000-yard, 7 touchdown guy for a while, which is fine. You know, that's a back end RB2. It's a guy you're going to flex a lot. That's a Carlos Hyde through his good years type of player. And that's solid. You know what? That's good. But it's where he's going now is still a little too rich for me. I'm going to pass.
All right, fellas. Drum roll. John has tied it up. Drum roll, sorry. John has tied it up. He's going at the 5.03, running back 17.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little rich for
me.
I
do too. But like I'm on him, but that's still rich to me.
Good gracious.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just gonna hold David Montgomery. If I own him, like, you just gotta wait and see what happens in year 2. I think it's worth seeing what the price is on him, but based off this ADP, I think people are valuing him mostly properly as far as what he's done last year, what could happen this year and beyond. So he seems about right. I don't know that I'm going to go out and try to get him in a ton of leagues, but I'll see what the price is. We talked about it with the Bears quarterback situation, with the dysfunction that was on the offense last year. The running back room is David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, who virtually is not a running back, and
he's
Ryan
a receiver.
Nall. So David Montgomery is going to get every single opportunity to prove himself this year. The volume, I think, will be there. And Okada, get your Sony Michel takes out of here.
Come on.
Wait, hold
nonsense.
on. You're telling me that the Bears have an extremely talented pass catching running back that's going to keep David Montgomery off the field on pass catching downs?
No, they're going to both play because the wide receiver room is Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller and Cordero Patterson.
And Tariq Cohen is a receiver.
Tariq Cohen should be this team's slot receiver.
He should be, but he hasn't been. He's going to take David Montgomery off the field on 3rd down sometimes, if not often. This feels a lot like Sony Michel. I don't know what you guys are smoking.
No. Sony Michel literally has no chance to get pass catching work. No chance.
He
has had 30 targets in the past 2 years.
Running back in college.
Oh, that's fine. I think he's a great pass catcher.
Okay, so Bill Belichick can recognize that.
No.
Yeah, he could.
He hasn't given him the chance to yet.
We're going on
unless you think he's lost his pass catching ability.
No, I think he's
okay. So, are you seriously comparing the two? Like, do you want to make a wager?
David Montgomery. No. I told you that he's ahead of Sony Michel by just check my rankings, 10 spots right now.
Okay.
Well, although David Montgomery is still 10 spots for me behind where consensus has him, so that's rough. But I'm just saying, I think that the glow on David Montgomery from last year being his rookie year and him being a high rookie pick is remaining in a larger sense than Sony Michel's, despite their situations being far less different and their productions being far less different than people think off the top of their heads.
So David Montgomery, 1,200 combined scrimmage yards and 9 touchdowns.
Under. If you're saying he has to hit both, I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I'm going over.
Betsy Poo.
I'll take the over. Let's put this one down here for reference. We can come back to this in 7 months or 8 months, whatever it is. What was that? 1,200 total yards?
1,209. Yep.
And 9 total touchdowns?
Total touchdowns, yep.
All right. I'll put a poll out on Twitter, see what the listeners think. But fellas, good way to end the show. Lots of heated debates on the pod tonight. That was always fun. A good way, I think, to value Dynasty players, like we talked about, is just these ADPs. Like, what do other people think? And do you agree? If so, they're probably a hold. If you disagree, you're either selling them or you're buying them. So look at ADP, see what your league mates are doing. And real quick, too, with ADP, like, whatever platform you're going to use, whether it's My Fantasy League, whether it's Sleeper, any other platform, you can look at the ADP before you draft. So check it out, because it's an easy way to be like, yep, in the 14th round, I'm targeting that dude. In the 16th round, I'm going to target Gerald Everett. Like you can do it that way and really have some good value. So go make some trades. Go enter that Devontae Adams giveaway. Lots of methods to do it. Check it out on the pinned tweet at RedshirtsFFPod. Hit us up in Patreon. Patreon.com/RedshirtsPod is the place to go for bonus content. It is the place to go for the Slack channel. We're talking fantasy football in there every single day, what feels like 12 hours a day at least.
Probably.
So come on in, join us, come check it out. And when you do it, that is the way that you get the most entries into the Devontae Adams giveaway. So check all those things out. Fellas, we are back on Saturday. Anything else for the people between now and then?
No.
I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, I really don't think so.
No, think we're good.
Perfect. All right, boys. Well, listeners, thank you so much for checking us out and listening. Until next time, and until you buy Sony Michel in Dynasty, wear the red shirts.